Without a doubt, the biggest battle in the revolution for sound money is happening right now. Let's talk about it in this video as we explore. And those battle lines are being drawn out in the blue state with regards to the greenback and sound money, gold and silver. We're going to be discussing what is going on there with the governor of the state of Kentucky and his obstinance against a previous bill and what the legislature has done right now to bring about change. And it's a battle that they very well could win. But you know, you and I, we can win the revolution for sound money by holding it in our possession. And I think it is immoral, and most of us agree, to pay taxes of any form on precious metals in any way. In other words, when you buy it, and also from the capital gains when you sell it. And hopefully that is something that the federal legislatures in the House of Representatives and Senate will take up. But, you know, that's going to be quite a while. That is not on the hot button topic for sure. But regardless, you and I, we can protect ourselves by holding gold and silver, having wealth outside of the system, as enshrined in our Constitution under Article 1, Section 10. Before I get into the story, I want to remind you on how you can procure your precious metals when your budget allows. And you can find a really good online bullion dealer or shop at your local coin shop. Now, the channel sponsor here is Summit Metals. I think it's a good idea to shop around and find the best deal and the best service. Service is very important, and sometimes it's worth paying a little bit more if you get great service. Summit Metals has been a low price leader oftentimes for many products, but they also have great customer service. Very personable folks over there at Summit Metals. SummitMetals.com. Now, this story is breaking, essentially. A couple of days ago, the Kentucky legislature has overwhelmingly passed a new sound money bill, sending the measure to Governor Andy Beshear for his signature. This House Bill 2 aims to prevent the collection of sales tax on gold and silver and would enable taxpayers to sue the state for recovery. Actually, they're a commonwealth, one of the few commonwealths in the country, for recovery of improper tax collections since a similar bill became law last summer. Last year, Governor Beshear purported to have exercised a line-item veto, deleting a gold and silver sales tax exemption that had been included in a 2024 revenue bill. At the time, he sneered at Kentucky savers, saying, "If you own gold, you can afford to pay sales tax on it." That is quite an obtuse statement, no question about that. In response, the legislature deemed Beshear's line veto invalid and directed the provision to be formally codified by the reviser of statutes, which it was. The state attorney general who declared the governor's veto invalid because the line item veto power only exists in the state constitution with respect to appropriation bills, which this was not. Ignoring state law, the governor directed the Kentucky Department of Revenue to continue collecting the tax, threatening businesses and investors with legal action. So there's the battle there's some shots across the bow by the governor's office with regards to with regards to collection of tax on this. You know, again, one of those things where, you know, he wants those greenbacks there in the bluegrass state. And indeed, that is what is occurring. Now, introduced by freshman legislature Representative T.J. Roberts in January, House Bill 2 passed the state house 76-17 and subsequently cleared the state Senate by another overwhelming vote of 30-6. The bill reads as follows: any aggrieved taxpayer who has had taxes collected from them in any purchase that are exempt under KRS 139.480 may maintain an action for a refund on behalf of themselves and others similarly situated, without need to resort to any administrative process against any person collecting or holding such tax funds, including the Secretary of the Finance and Administration Cabinet and the Commissioner of the Department of Revenue. This bill is supported and sponsored by leaders of the Republican majority and was assigned a single-digit House bill number, a designation usually assigned to priority bills with strong support. I was wondering where that number came from. That is something else. This shows how important this measure is, and I applaud the state legislature for doing this, sending a strong and powerful message this time. And yes, indeed, in his interview with the Sound Money Defense League, Representative Roberts said that the Kentucky State Legislature has again affirmed that purchases of gold and silver should not be taxed. Governor Beshear's blatant abuse of power ends with the passage of House Bill 2. Citizens of Kentucky, or any state in the U.S. for that matter, shouldn't be taxed for trying to use, buy, or transact in honest, sound money. With the freshman legislator from District 66, who has already become known for his pro-liberty views. If HB 2 becomes law, whether signed by the governor or by veto override, aggrieved taxpayers will be entitled to reimbursement of the attorney's fees and legal costs. Representative Roberts says he expects a veto from the governor, but that he's committed to rallying the votes required to override it. And I think that requires 2/3 majority, but I could be wrong, but that sounds about right. I think it's the same in most state bodies, that in order to override a veto requires a 2/3 majority. And based off of the overwhelming majority passed in the House and the Senate, likely that's not going to be a problem. And now, the one thing is that there's been a lot of lobbying that has gone on in Kentucky for years, and I applaud the Sound Money Defense League and Money Metals Exchange, who have worked for years in Kentucky to pass sound money legislation. Kentucky aims to be the 46th state to end the tax on purchases of gold and silver. That means there's only 4 more to go, folks. That's right. The vast majority of states have some sort of tax exemption laws in place. And some need to take steps even further. I think it's almost as egregious that some of these states in the union will not collect taxes if you spend over $2,000 or $1,500. I think that's crazy. You're literally punishing those who want to save in precious metals who don't earn that much. And of course, the obstinate statement by Governor Beshear about that if you can afford gold, you can afford to pay the tax. Well, that's just, again, that is misleading. And, people of all income levels can buy and, yes, can afford gold in many different ways. And, of course, silver is another metal that is being taxed, and he didn't address that. And this eliminates taxes on both gold and silver. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. Now, one thing is for sure that Governor Beshear obviously doesn't know or doesn't understand is that in Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, nothing but gold and silver shall be used as money between the states and in the states. So there's that aspect of it. Do you tax money? The other ironic situation here is that two of the probably most libertarian and pro-sound money members of Congress in the last 50 years, one is Ron Paul. Ron Paul, I think Ron Paul's got the son, Rand Paul, who lives in Kentucky and represents Kentucky. But I don't know if Ron Paul has moved to Kentucky or been to Kentucky before, but he was a congressman out of Texas. But nonetheless, the Paul family is well represented there, with the senator being there, and of course influenced by Ron Paul in this legislation or in the sound money principles. So it is an interesting thing to see how this is playing out in that regard, and I would hope that there would be some pressure by Rand Paul on the governor. But there's probably only so much he can do because of the separation of powers between the Commonwealth and the United States of America with the Senate. But nonetheless, encouraging words could be sent. We'll see how it plays out. But I think that based off of his statements below or alone, if you live in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, I hope you will consider voting out this governor, Andy Beshear. In fact, even most recently, he has defied what the legislature has proposed for other items. I don't want to get into now, but he's not representing the overwhelming majority of views for Kentuckians. No question about that. So another story. We'll follow this and see how this goes. But this is a situation that the legislature could very well win, which means that Kentuckians win in the revolution for sound money as it continues. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. I aim to bring you the latest news in the world of precious metals, and I'm trying my hardest to bring you the latest. And I hope if you enjoy what I do here, want to hear the latest news, I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel and pressing that thumbs up button down below. If you hit that like button, it does help the algorithm to get the word out, and that's my goal here. So with that, I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.